Welcome to another Your Tech Report video. If we haven't already met, I am Mark Aflalo, and I want to introduce myself and give you a little bit of context because today's video is a little bit different than my normal one because it's all about audio and wireless audio, and that is not only my passion, but something that I've been doing for 30 years. I've been in the audio broadcast space for almost 30 years. Building radio studios, digital state-of-the-art studios, old analog studios, cutting tape, working behind the scenes, working in front of the microphone. If you could think of it in the audio space, I have had my hands on it in my career. For the past 15-20 years, I've been doing a mix of post-production, that's things like producing commercials and radio jingles and things like that, to working live events, everything from sports to comedy to music. All this to say that crystal clear audio is not only a bonus, but it's an essential piece of me doing my business. If you talk to anybody in the audio space, true representation of what you're listening to is pivotal to what you're doing on a daily basis. So when it comes to monitoring your audio wirelessly, today we're going to be talking about the Lectrosonics M2T wireless in-ear monitor transmitter, and of course their receivers that go along with them. So in-ear monitors, as you've probably seen in broadcasters or performers on stage, are headphones. They're higher fidelity headphones, most of the time custom molded to the person who's wearing them to provide a true acoustic seal. Now, while I use them in the broadcasting space, you're more likely to have seen them in your favorite musician on stage, whether it's a guitarist, a drummer, or a singer on stage performing. They're wearing these custom in-ear monitors so they can hear themselves and or whatever they want to hear on stage. And that really is key today because performers can control and want to control what they hear on stage. It may not be a beautiful mix that you hear in the audience. It may be a singer who wants to hear more of their voice, a drummer who wants to hear more of the singer but less of the guitar. It might be the guitarist that is selfish and just wants to hear themselves. This is the art of monitoring, and that's why there are professions, monitor engineers, that spend their entire lives learning and doing this craft on stage with musicians. Now, one commonality of musicians of all kinds, especially ones that are using in-ear monitors like this, is that they want to be able to feel like they're in the room. Yes, they're on stage and they want to feel like they can hear properly, but they want to feel the energy of the audience. Oftentimes, you'll see a performer stand out and talk to the crowd and actually take out their in-ear monitor so they can take in the crowd. And until recently, the crowd wasn't one of those things that people had in their in-ear monitor mix. Now, while there are many brands and types of different in-ear monitor systems, there are some commonalities between them, and the biggest commonality has been the switch from analog to digital. You see, when audio is transmitting wirelessly over a radio frequency on the analog side of things, there's often artifacts. There's RF noise, radio frequency noise, that is just part and parcel of what you're hearing in your ear. It's kind of like a constant buzz that's in the background, and as much as you can try and tweak that, it's always going to be there on an analog signal. It would sound somewhat like what you're hearing right now. A little bit of noise in the background, a little bit of hum, but it wasn't something that you could really get rid of, so people just got used to it and they dealt with it. But now, thanks to digital wireless transmission systems like this Lectrosonics M2T and this belt pack receiver, you can hear crystal clear audio in high fidelity stereo sound like you're hearing right now. And this, my friends, is changing the game for in-ear wireless monitoring and changing the game for performers everywhere. You might have heard of the brand Lectrosonics. That's because they've been in the news lately due to a new user, a small band you may have heard of called the Foo Fighters. Yep, the Foo Fighters are using a kit like this on their 2023-2024 tour, thanks to a rental from Britannia Row UK and Claire Global USA. Now, as you can imagine, their kit's a little bit bigger than what I've got here. They've got a 16 stereo mix setup with a Duet M2T with the M2Ra Receiver like I have here. So you know when a band like the Foo Fighters are using a system, it's gone through extensive and rigorous testing, and trust me, they have. So let's talk about what's cool about the M2 transmitter and receiver. First of all, the design of the actual transmitter is a half rack, which means when you put two of them together in one rack unit, you can get up to 8 mono sends or 4 stereo sends. It's important to note that Lectrosonics is also backwards compatible with all their previous devices. So if you own Lectrosonics gear, upgrading does not mean that you're making your old stuff obsolete. It will work with the new systems. Of course, if you want the latest and greatest, you're going to want to go digital across the board. These M2 transmitters have different capabilities. You can plug in an XLR or quarter-inch analog signal to them on the back, or you can use Dante audio over IP and get a true digital signal from the board directly into the transmitter. The latest 3.0 and higher firmware also enables AES 256 encryption, so the audio is actually encrypted from the source to the destination, so people can't be listening in on your frequencies, especially when people are using these to also communicate on stage. Now, because there are 4 inputs, you can split those inputs into 4 separate mixes, mono mixes, that are sending to those receivers, or you can have 2 separate stereo mixes going out, all at 50 milliwatts of power, which is enough to cover an entire stadium, let alone enough power to make sure your performers on stage are getting the high fidelity quality sound that they need. Now, I'm not going to get into the software today because Lectrosonics has Wireless Designer, which is a piece of software for Mac and PC that lets you control all aspects of their digital systems, actually also their old analog systems. So if you want PC control and granular control and not have to use buttons on the front of a belt pack or the front of a receiver, you can actually plug in your computer and control a whole array of systems at the same time. The digital receiver that I'm testing is the M2Ra. It's got a beautiful LED display on the front. It's super contrast, so you can see it in dark and light spaces, and you can especially see it outside when you're in bright sunlight. You see your meters right on front, you see the frequency you're using, the power, the battery life, everything is on board. Everything Lectrosonics is built and made in the USA. It's got an incredible industrial design. I've seen tests where they've driven over this stuff with cars and it has not seen a single scratch. These are made compact to just slip on the back of your belt, so any performer can plug in their headphones and have instant control of their volume if they want it right there on the top. Obviously the headphone jack as well, so they can plug in the in-ear monitors of their choice, and a little infrared port, which is really handy when you're programming a lot of these. Think theater, for example, where they have a lot of performers on stage. You can use infrared to program these really, really quick, and you can get them in, program them, and get them out the door really fast onto the performers. So let's get back to sound for a second, because I think this is the true important part of what we're talking about when it comes to any system like this. So we've demonstrated the older analog systems, which is how you're hearing me right now, with that radio frequency noise and the ambience behind me. But when you switch to a digital signal, you get that uncompromised, clear, high-fidelity stereo sound that every performer wants to hear on stage. So why is a band like the Foo Fighters using these on tour? Well, simple answers there. Number one, amazing build quality is one. You've got the full digital sound and operation aspect of it, and these are wideband. That means they can take advantage of the entire licensed spectrum no matter where they are in the world. They don't have to deal with headaches, they don't have to deal with coordination and licensing. They know that wherever they go, they will just work. Now, you can use regular alkaline batteries in these if you want, or they support nickel metal hydride rechargeable batteries, which means you can go from sound check all the way to the end of a show. Now, here's an interesting way other artists are actually using Lectrosonics digital systems as well, because you see, besides digital in-ear monitor systems, they make stereo digital transmitters for microphones, line levels, guitars, etc., etc. For example, a company like JH Audio that makes those custom in-ear headphones for lots of artists worldwide. They've got a pair of their monitors called the Ambient Pro, and what's special about these monitors is that on board in the actual design is a microphone pointing 35 degrees away from the head. 35 degrees is important because it's the natural position that sound enters your ear if you're sitting at a console. So then they can take the ambient sound, a crowd, a room, whatever it might be, put it back through a Lectrosonics digital transmitter back to the mixing console, where the monitor engineer can then actually feed that to the artist's delight into their ears, so they can feel like they're naturally listening to the room, just as if they were not wearing their actual in-ear monitors, but with the ability to control everything that they hear. Artists like Lenny Kravitz, Kenny Loggins, Melissa Etheridge. So ask me, Mark, how do you demonstrate something like this? Well, behind the scenes here, not only do I have this one shotgun mic that's picking up my audio, but I'm recording the sound that you're hearing from the digital receiver, the analog receiver, and right now I'm going to play back some simulated crowd noise. In my crowd, though, we've got some angry people on the left and we've got some pretty happy people on the right. So we're going to get a pretty distinct sound and separation between the left and right channels. So now, when you're listening back on an analog signal, you really don't get that left and right feel. It all seems like it's coming from in front of you, and if you go to the left or you go to the right, you're not really feeling it. But on a digital system that is using high fidelity, stereo quality transmission, you can actually go from left to right, from left to right, and actually get that separation of the crowd around you and feel like you're immersed in the experience itself. So that's why bands like the Foo Fighters are using this brand new technology and this new technique to make sure they give the best performance possible for their fans. So you want to hear that one more time? Why not put a pair of headphones on now so you can get the true stereo separation of left and right, and we'll do that demonstration for you again. First, we'll listen on the analog receiver, and you'll notice that you're hearing my voice nice and clear. You're hearing some of the crowd behind you, but you're also hearing that RF noise, and it doesn't seem like they're properly separated left and right. It's not the clearest image that you could possibly get. Now let's switch to digital for a second. So with the digital signal, you're hearing a much clearer representation of yourself, and then as you move from the left to the right, you're going to get that stereo separation and that feeling like you're actually in the room, because guess what? You are in the room. So now with my in-ear monitors, not only do I hear a clear representation of myself, but when I turn on the actual background noise, as I go left, I can hear left. As I go right, I can hear right. So I feel like I'm actually in the room with the crowd. So that is M2 Duet from Lectrosonics. Obviously, they've got a complete lineup, which you can find at lectrosonics.com. They've got very, very cool products, everything from transmitters, belt pack transmitters, camera mounted transmitters, receivers of all shapes and sizes, clip-on microphone modules. I can go on endlessly because I've been using them in the broadcast space for a very long time, and they really are my go-to system when it comes to anything wireless and reliable. Because in this world, you just do not want to leave anything to chance. Thanks for watching. If you want to leave a comment, you have got the comment section down below. If you aren't already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, which will let you know anytime there's a brand new video just like this to share with you. Thanks for watching.